We are joined now by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Hey guys, I'm all right. How are you?
Good. Okay. Let's start. Let's start with Loco hoops, just because.
Sure.
I mean, listen, Louisville and Creighton. It's a heck of a matchup. It's a tight 8-9. Which team do you feel, if either, is seeded incorrectly?
Between the two of them, Louisville.
Seems
I think
weird.
Louisville is probably not an 8 seed, but Creighton's seeded low in my opinion too. And I would say it's the team that probably should be the most unhappy is Auburn. And then Auburn's going to be playing a game that's going to be really challenging, no matter who they play. Creighton has a center that can take away some of what Auburn does. Auburn's similar in some ways to St. John's. Yes, St. John's is beat Creighton soundly in the second half of that game, but Auburn won't have much of a crowd to sort of push them on. So yeah, Louisville's a little underseeded, but not much you can do. Obviously, the committee really liked the work that the SEC did, and we will find out together whether that was warranted.
Sam, as you kind of look at this matchup, like you said, you thought Creighton was a little underseeded as well.
Yeah.
What kind of gives you that? Because I mean, I'm looking at them, I go, yeah, I figure like an 8 or a 9. Did you think making it to that Saturday Big East Championship final should have bumped them a little bit? Because it didn't seem like the committee took conference tournament results a ton into consideration in terms of seeding.
Yeah, I think probably the seeding is built on what Creighton losing to Nebraska and Creighton just not having a very good showing out in Las Vegas. So they lost to Texas A&M, which I thought was a good loss. I mean A&M is a very good team. And then they also lost to what was it, San Diego State?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was also an okay loss. But Creighton hasn't, they've had some struggles out there. What's interesting is a couple of years ago, Creighton was a 6, and they lost to UNLV and BYU out in Vegas, or Arizona State and BYU out in Vegas, and it didn't hurt them as much. So I feel like this particular group of decision makers really leaned hard on the on the non-conference approach to things, and that's fine. I mean, each group has its own framework, but I think the Big East. Here's probably the best way to put it: if you took Wake Forest, which didn't make the NCAA tournament, and you put them in the Mountain West, and you took the top team in the Mountain West and you put them in the ACC, I don't think they'd have the same records. And I understand that the ACC is down and NIL or whatever you want to call it, but the reality is that that's still the ACC and it's still the Big East. If you took Villanova and you put them in the Mountain West, I think they'd probably be about a 30-win team. So, I somewhere along the way, the very small sample size is something that happened in November or December in a neutral site where Boise State did this or Utah State did that or San Diego State did this. It feels like it has an outsized impact on the sport. And the other thing is that, like, at the end of the day, college basketball is really not built or defined by what you do in November and December from a fan's perspective. Now, maybe they should move when college basketball starts, but people don't really care about what's going on in college basketball in November and December. And it feels like the tail wagging the dog when the committee says, yes, but we care. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, it just doesn't. I get that the committee wants teams to schedule other good teams, but people aren't, by and large, watching those games. You should redesign your selection committee process to reward the games that people are really watching, which is the conference games and the conference tournaments. We may not like the conference tournaments, but fans do. And I think you got to re-engineer the way you do this, or otherwise you just keep running into these kinds of matchups now where I think the first and second rounds could be kind of interesting, but I think that, as you progress in the process, I'm just not sure the best teams are always going to get to the end because they're going to be facing each other, and that's unfortunate.
Sam, don't want to speak for you here, but it sounds like you felt this version of the committee valued or overvalued bad losses more than they did good wins. If you look at Creighton, if you look at North Carolina,
that's why Carolina's in. They're 8-0 in quad twos.
If you look at Carolina's wins versus say a West Virginia's wins in the quads and who ends up in and who doesn't, like is that kind of, it seemed like they really punished people for the bad losses more than rewarding for good wins?
I think that's probably part of it. I think they probably tried to reward people for scheduling difficult. And so, taking the chances. And again, I don't have any problem with doing that. But again, is Michigan a 5 seed? I don't think so. Not at this point in the season. But if you go back and you look at what Michigan did or didn't do in non-conference play, by the way, Michigan played a pretty hard non-conference schedule, but they lost some games. And so part of what happens is, well, they lost those games. So that defines their resume. And college football's different. It reverses that. It obviously rewards how you're playing kind of right in the moment. And I know that, Matt Rule probably had some chagrin about that related to, he's talked about it a couple times, but I think that's a better model. I think it's better to gauge the strength of a team based on it playing teams that know it really well versus a one-off in, again, in Las Vegas or Atlantis or wherever. Like, I just don't think that that's as important. And, there's a lot of chatter about how you put those schedules together and did we pick the right team, which created the right domino over here and pulled the lever over there. And, and did we do all the things the way we were supposed to do it and do it the right way? And that just seems like a little bit of a shell game. I think it would be better to gauge it on what teams do in conference play. Now, all that said, Nebraska was in contention for a bid in part because of beating Creighton, and they play Creighton every year. But that was a team that's 7-13 in the Big Ten really has no business making the NCAA tournament. And Nebraska was in contention in part because A, it won the right game, and B, it beat Creighton in the non-conference. And that was getting, heavily weighed.
Sam, safe to say, though, I get it. I get the premise, right, of the scheduling. But in basketball, with so many more opportunities and, the tournaments and, the non-cons always have some sexy matchups, and you have the cross-conference matchups that the networks pay for. Basketball is still in a different discussion when it comes to scheduling than football, though, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it is, obviously, because you have so many more data points and you have an opportunity to play a bunch of different teams. So, yes, it is in a different part of the discussion. But, again, I feel for a team like Villanova, whose coach got fired, because Villanova feels, some sort of obligation to play the other teams in the Big Five. So that's Temple and not Drexel. Temple, LaSalle.
Yeah, I think it is Drexel.
Is Drexel in there too?
I believe so. Yeah. St. Joseph's.
St. Joe's. They feel some obligation to play some of those teams each year because it makes total logical sense for Philadelphia teams to all go to the Palestra and play each other. That all makes sense. And yet it would be like, well, don't lose that game though. Don't lose the game. You're going to have to, oh my gosh, if you lose to the wrong team and then they do the wrong thing in the wrong league, that's silly.
I mean, it'd be like Creighton playing Omaha every year, basically.
Yeah.
It makes total sense.
Hey, can you do that? Oh my gosh, again, Sam? Oh my gosh.
The reality is it is kind of like playing UNO, but it's kind of not. UNO's been in Division I for 13 years. There would have been no reason for Creighton to play UNO before that.
But it's logical for them to play now.
Each other for 70 years. Yeah. But some of those teams in Philadelphia have been playing for 70 years. And what you're telling Villanova is don't play those games. Don't play them. Go play Boise State in Dallas, Texas in front of 13 people. Because that's basketball. Come on. That's just a dumb rationale to take. I understand metrics. I understand how it works. I'm just not sure that they didn't seed it better 35 years ago in basketball. We're not talking about football. We can have a separate conversation about that. But I'm just not sure that they've gotten this thing all that right. Like, I think they've gone – I understand the metrics, but I also understand how metrics work, and it's a domino effect. And what it tells teams – again, St. John's got lucky. They beat – who they played? They beat Seton Hall, and I don't know if they played Rutgers. And they beat some of the teams around their area, but it disincentivizes logical basketball games that are much cheaper for the schools involved over, hey, let's go travel and spend $100,000 to go down to, wherever it is. Yeah, Atlantis or Hawaii or whatever. And let's go play a random game out there because it's going to help us in mid-March. I just don't get that. I think I'm glad Xavier made it. I mean, I think they deserve to. They're the number 4 team in the Big East. I mean, they obviously won the tiebreaker with Marquette. I'm like, Xavier's a good basketball team. They're a hell of a lot better basketball team than Indiana.
And you look right too. I mean, full disclosure, you've been on that for 5 weeks. That before they got hot.
Yeah.
Right, and I think I value the Big East and the league that it is more than I think that the committee goes in there and they just see names and they just see metrics, and some years the Big East is going to be better than others because of things that they did in late November and early December. To me, that does not capture the essence of that league. Is the SEC, the best league of all time? I suppose we'll find out. My hunch is no, that it's a very good league, but it's not the best league of all time because I think some of these teams are going to get in the tournament and they're going to get bopped pretty good because they've all kind of been playing each other. And so, we'll find out. Now, all that said, I'd have put Texas in the tournament. I watched Texas a lot. I watched Indiana a lot.
So I said that in the opening segment, and I can't get Ravi to go for it. I would not be excited to play Texas ever.
Well, there's two different things there.
No.
There's two different things.
They're good.
There's two different things.
They're better than your head shake.
I could get they're more capable than my head shake. There's a difference, right?
Oh no.
Like Sam, I can look at Texas and be like, hey, when they're good, they're good. I wouldn't want to play them, all this and that. And I can also say 15 losses is too damn many. Go home.
Yeah, again, of the bubble teams, I can't speak intelligently to West Virginia. Really, I can't. I didn't see them much.
I did, and they're vastly different now than they were
in November.
Right. Texas is better than Indiana. Xavier's better than Indiana. And Ohio State, which might be the most talented team of those 4, really did not belong. I mean, they underachieved. And so I didn't think Ohio State belonged in the tournament. So the teams that ended up making were Texas, Xavier, North Carolina. North Carolina, in my opinion, is better than Indiana.
I got a question. I don't know how deep in the weeds you guys want to go. Is Arkansas getting a pass?
Yeah, we just kind of ignore them. But it's because – so here's my issue. Like,
do you think – is Arkansas getting a pass, Sam?
I think based on what I believe, which is playing well at the end of the season, no.
And they get
Arkansas,
Boogie Flan back, I guess. But they're a 10.
I think they deserve to make it. I don't know. Were they on the right end or the wrong end of beating Michigan? I can't remember if they were.
But as a 10,
they beat Michigan by 2. So
yeah.
So that was going to put them in. But again, I think they'll give Kansas a challenge. I think Kansas has played very well for 2 months. They're a long ways from the team that beat Duke. I like Michigan. Go ahead.
These first 2 rounds are just going to be mayhem. I actually think at first blush it's going to be super chalky at the end, but man,
first couple rounds,
these things are going to be disgusting early.
Yeah, the first weekend's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to see some upsets. I feel, I think Michigan, if they get past the first games, got a chance to go away. I think Wisconsin got a tough draw. Playing BYU in Denver, the 6th seed gets the big crowd. That's strange to me. But whatever. I think Wisconsin got kind of a tough draw. Illinois is probably going to be out in the first weekend as a 6. I think UCLA is going to lose their first game. I I wasn't impressed with UCLA all year. So, from Big Ten teams, I think the teams most likely to get to the Final Four are Michigan State and Michigan. And then Purdue got overseeded. I don't really know why they're a 4, but whatever.
So we disagree on that. I like Purdue. I know you don't. And you like Michigan, and I still try to figure out how they win. I ask every week, Sam, since like January. I'm like, how does Michigan do it with that loosey-goosey backcourt and turning the ball over the way they do? And Sam, all they do is stinking win.
Yeah, they can win, whether they can outscore you, and they can also play a slow it down defensive game. They have a good coach. I think that helps them. And again, they could lose their first game. The team they're playing is really good, and you just never know. Those 5-12 matchups, there's usually one per year and sometimes two where they get on the floor and they're like, oh, the 12 seed is better than the 5. That happened last year with Wisconsin and James Madison, I think. And the game wasn't even close. I mean, James Madison basically ran them off the floor. That's probably going to happen to one of the 5s this year.
I don't see it, but I mean, maybe. I looked and I tried to stretch my brain. The hot one is going to be Colorado State and Memphis. But if what's his buckets is healthy for Memphis, Colorado State plays weird and they got a great offense. And Medvedev's a stud who's probably going to get another job here in the next couple of days. But
Sam, it may not be the 5-12, but it might be the Purdue team that you don't love as a 4 against the High Point team that people are pretty high on.
Yeah, I mean, it might. I think,
Point can score. I don't think they can slow Purdue down.
I don't think Purdue has any
That's
interest
probably
in
true.
slowing them down either.
Listen, you watch.
But let's just say for argument's sake, High Point wins the game. How does Alan Huss not get mentioned for some of these jobs?
He can be.
Why is he a worse coach than Ben McCollum?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you why here, Sam. This is my Huss philosophy. He knows right now, every year, for as long as he wants, he will have the best talent at High Point. He can win as much as he wants to. So he can be picky about the next job that he wants. But make no mistake, he's going to be very, very, very calculated because he doesn't have to be in a rush. He makes good money. Is not a ton of pressure, and he has the best players
and tons of resources.
Like I'm just telling he'll come up because they'll do this again next year, and they'll be even better, and he will be able to get the job that he wants.
If you're saying that he's waiting for Creighton, I can understand.
I don't know that. I don't know that because I went through these hypotheticals last week with him about him. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's the guy that is like gonna do the obvious thing. You know what I mean? Like the next natural. Some people just aren't built like that. So I don't have any insight into that at all.
I guess we'll see. Like, the conversation around the Iowa job is what it is. And again, it's like, well, it's Darian DeVries and Ben McCollum. Well, I mean, Ben McCollum's been at Drake for 1 year and doesn't have any more time. You know what I mean? Like, he's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good coach. I'm just surprised that, Alan Huss didn't come up immediately in that conversation. Maybe it's agents doing what they do. Minnesota is perfectly free to hire Nico Medved from Colorado State. Go for it. Is he going to get NIL support? Is he going to get financial support from boosters up there? Because I don't think Ben Johnson did. And I think Ben Johnson's about as good of a coach as Nico Medved. They come from the same coaching tree to some degree with Tim Miles. So, it'll be interesting. Like, I think Huss runs a style that people like to watch. So I'd be like, yeah, I'd want to hire that guy. But I guess would Villanova consider him? I don't know. I'll just be curious to see what happens.
Sam, let me ask you this. And this is, we're just in wild speculation mode because that's what coaching carousels do. Let's say for whatever reason, Mac moves on, whether it's to Indiana, Iowa, decides he wants to retire to Arizona, whatever it is, right? And you're sitting there.
He's not going to coach Iowa.
I'm just being facetious here.
Oh God!
But let's say Max.
Maybe, I don't know. That would be something if he went to Iowa and it in Iowa. He coached at Iowa and Nebraska. Oh man.
Maybe he misses. Maybe he misses
I
the.
don't think that's gonna happen.
Maybe he misses the Valley. Ben McCollum moves on to Iowa. He's like, yeah, let's go coach at Drake. I don't know. Like it's. Let's say Mac is moving on for whatever reason. Who's your first call if you're Marcus Blossom? Is it?
There's other people who can speak better about that than me. So I don't want to.
Well,
I know Nebraska. I know Nebraska donors that love what's happening at Omaha. Don't kid yourself.
Let me give you. I was going to give you.
There's a couple of heavy hitters that love Crutch.
No, I just was going to give you a list real quick. I was going to give you a list real quick, Sam. I was just going to give you 3 guys and give me your preference because we were talking about them. Ben McCollum, Coach D-Rock, Coach DeVries, or Al Huss. Which of those 3 are, if you're Creighton, you say, hey, I want that guy?
Well, I mean, there's some logic to the last of those 3 because he's able to incorporate, I mean, part of what Mac does is what he does, and he knows the place.
Dude, his coaching tree is incredible. It's incredible.
The same as
Coach Mac's coaching tree is incredible.
Yeah, it is.
I
mean, it costs a lot of money, so you have to consider that.
When you're second to Patino,
but there's other people who know more about this than I do. I don't know. That's a hard question, and
I think Ravi likes the fact that there's purity in your answers, Sam, because you're not jaded.
Well, yeah, I was curious.
No, but
I was just curious out of those 3 guys, because if we're having this conversation about, why not Huss over McCollum? I'm just kind of curious if it was closer to home, kind of what choices you'd be making.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of them would be good picks. I think all of them would be solid selections. And Creighton, here's what I'd say. I think Creighton's a good job. I would be very surprised if the current coach left for Indiana or Iowa. But, again, if you had a dream that you wanted to coach at Indiana, okay, but Creighton's been a way better program than Indiana for a decade, way better, not even close, way better. And on top of that, they basically draw the same fans. So, I don't know. I think Creighton's a good job, and a lot of that's credit to obviously Greg McDermott and Doug McDermott. Doug deserves, a part of the credit too. He was playing. So, that's a great program, and I think, man, I would think there'd be a lot of coaches that would be like, oh boy, you're telling me, top 10 attendance in the country,
I'm just saying, a lot of these coaches that are winning at lower levels like D2, there's a blueprint. Look at some of these guys that are having success at the NCAA level and where they came from. McCollum's always going to be a hot coach because he's extremely good at what he does.
Well, and that guy could have left.
He's a monster. He could have gone D1 if he wanted to.
At a various amount of times, yeah.
The guy that knows a lot about McCollum is John Walker, our Creighton beat writer he used to cover. So you want a McCollum expert.
You know what we need?
Walker.
We need to talk to Johnny Walker, blue and black. We have yet to talk to him, and I find him fascinating.
Get him on the phone. Here you go. See, there's people who know way more about.
I just
don't want to speak out of turn. You want to talk to me about, the edge rushers at Nebraska. I've literally watched every transfer now. Well,
I will say this, Sam.
Long snapper, but
since you're being very, I love the style of communication. You're being very free flowing. So I'm gonna take advantage of your range here. How many in the injuries? Because I'm not leading. Let me just get to it. How many of these guys, Sam, that they got out of the portal, considering there was this narrative that Nebraska's kind of turning the script and getting away from development, do you think will actually contribute and play this year?
12 or 13 out of the 60.
Really?
Yes.
I think you're nuts.
Why?
He said, why? You're so interesting. Why?
Well, why? I mean,
okay,
so let's just go through the ones that I don't think will do a lot.
Okay.
The quarterback.
Okay.
Right? The defensive lineman from Mississippi State.
Okay.
And the safety from Georgia. A lot of the other guys that they've added are not young. Unless Jameer Khan's just not going to play at all, well, he's only got 2 years left.
Yeah. You know,
like
he's like 180 pounds.
yeah, he's tough though.
No, I know. Believe me,
He's
I'm not
tough.
talking about his ability. I'm just.
Yeah.
So it's things like that where we think we make this natural transition, and he may be gifted enough, but I'm just saying, like, I'll be curious to see what happens with the wear and tear, because availability and like rigor is a real thing for these guys.
Sure.
And it's more than just a handful.
Outside of the three I just mentioned, who are the other people that you're not sure will come?
So and I'm not sure, like he's going to play, but guys that we just like pencil in, like McCullough, right? You looked at his frame. I know he shocked everybody.
He better play.
Listen, I get it. No, I'm not.
He wants to.
Hey,
I can tell you that. Like he's on a mission.
Sam, hear my heart. The guys will play. I'm not saying they won't play. I'm saying it's not as a foregone conclusion on the numbers as we think, just because kind of everybody has a little bit of something. Like you looked at McCullough and you're thinking, holy smokes, he looks like he could be hooping at PBA more than. So it's like, okay, is this a James Williams thing? Is he going to be a pass rushing specialist? Can he get to 245? Can he stop the run? Can he play a puller? If he is a jack, he's the fourth D lineman. Like there's a lot. It's not just, oh shoot, man, he comes from here, because we've seen this before, right? A guy comes from said school, and we're like, pencil him in. I go by Coach Simpson's answer about McCullough too, right? Where he said, hey, you got to earn the right to rush the passer. We got to stop the run. So those things I always think are like, I know how those guys are coaching it. Like you can't, it's hard. I think there's a lot of teaching that's going to have to go on and rigor in this offseason for a lot of these guys to play the way Nebraska wants to play.
I think that's fair. I think the receiver position, they added 3. Certainly Dane Key's going to play. The other 2 guys, they're going to have to earn it. And there's some pretty good receivers on Nebraska's roster as is. I think in the secondary, I think Kahn is undersized but tough. And you can go back and watch a lot of Southern Illinois games. You can watch him play BYU. People do not throw at him much.
Yeah.
He's got some ability. Andrew Marshall has a lot of talent. He's been the one that everybody's talked about. We'll see how that goes. He played a great game against Oregon. So, that certainly helps his opportunities. Watch Jalen George quite a bit. I think he's going to play. I know he's banged up. The 2 offensive linemen are certainly brought here to play. I know, one of them is going to. Spindler definitely will, and we'll see with Elijah Pritchett. And then you have, the middle linebacker from Georgia Southern. He's going to start, and I think they feel pretty good about that. So I think when you go down the list, okay, so Harley Gilmore, maybe he won't play. Maybe he could redshirt. So that gets you 4 guys that may not play. Your 5th guy could be Jameer Khan, but I think Jameer Khan might play. And then, of course, the long snapper and the punter are going to play because they don't have anybody else. So, they have another punter. That's not true. But I think Jack McAllister is here to play. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I do.
I do.
Play. They didn't sign them to, not play.
No, I understand.
Right away, except for the 4 that I mentioned. Quarterback, Gabe Moore, Justin Rhett, and Harley Gilmore. They can, in theory, all redshirt.
Yeah, you always
the quarterback can't, but
you want good competition to make sure the guys stay on their A game, and you'll let the chips fall where they may. That's what I think.
Obviously, Nebraska's backup quarterback is Jalen Gramstad, and I mean Matt Rule didn't exactly say that, but his answer to my question about Davila and Latif was to talk about Gramstad. So, that's fine. That's their guy, and that's okay. I think that's a good pick to have a seasoned vet back there. But my goodness, if you're going to invest the time and the energy in bringing in a transfer quarterback, you hope he's good.
Yeah.
You hope he is, because you put the time and effort to bring them in. So they could have just kept another walk-on or whatever you want to call it, but they brought this guy in instead. And so I'll be curious to see how quickly he progresses.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald.
That's way good, Sam. I like it.
Appreciate the time as always.
We'll
talk to you next
2
week.
guys sitting at the bar, 3 guys sitting at the barber shop. That's what this was.
That's right. I like that. Take care.
Appreciate it, Sam.